Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, a UES Defiant. The metal floor under his feet hummed with the sound of the engines. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, pressing buttons and watching screens. But Jake's eyes were fixed on the big holographic display in front of him. The display showed a message that made his heart sink. Another rejection. The Galactic Trade Council had turned down Earth's newest starship designs once again. Jake read the words slowly, each one hitting him like a punch to the gut. Primitive curiosities, the message said, not suitable for galactic commerce. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This was the 15th rejection in 3 months. Every time Earth tried to join the galactic community, the aliens laughed at them. They called human ships slow. Ugly and stupid. On the other side of the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Betty Walsh shook her head. They don't even look at our designs anymore, she said. They just send back the same message every time. Jake nodded. He knew Betty was right. The aliens had made up their minds about humans long ago. They thought Earth was full of backward people who could never understand real technology. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter sat in her office reading the same message. Her desk was covered with papers and reports. All of them said the same thing. The aliens didn't want to work with humans. They thought Earth's technology was a joke. Lisa had been dealing with the aliens for 20 years. She remembered when the first alien ship had arrived at Earth. Everyone had been so excited. They thought it was the beginning of a new age for humanity. They thought they would learn amazing things from the aliens and become part of a great galactic family. But the aliens had other ideas. They looked at Earth's cities, ships, and weapons. Then they laughed. They said humans were like children playing with toys. They said Earth would never be ready for real galactic civilization. The worst part was that the aliens were right about some things. Their ships were faster than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could destroy a human battleship in seconds. Their technology seemed like magic compared to what Earth had. Dr. Alex Turner knew this better than anyone. He worked in a secret lab under the mountains of Colorado. His job was to study alien technology and try to copy it. But every time he tried, he failed. The alien computers were too complex. The alien engines worked in ways that human science couldn't explain. The alien weapons used energy sources that humans had never seen before. Alex had been trying for 15 years to understand even the simplest alien devices. He had nothing to show for it except a lot of broken machines and failed experiments. Alex sat in his lab late at night, staring at pieces of alien technology. His team had taken apart a simple alien communication device. It should have been easy to understand. But even after months of work, they couldn't figure out how it worked. Maybe we're just not smart enough, said Dr. Nina Brooks, one of Alex's assistants. She was young and brilliant, but even she couldn't make sense of the alien technology. Alex didn't want to admit it, but he was starting to think Nina was right. Maybe humans really were too primitive to understand galactic technology. Maybe Earth would always be a backward planet full of people who couldn't keep up with the rest of the galaxy. The aliens made sure humans knew their place. At every diplomatic meeting, they reminded Earth's representatives that humans were newcomers to the galaxy. They said humans needed to learn from their betters. They said Earth should be grateful that the galactic community even allowed humans to exist. The worst part was how the aliens treated human soldiers. Commander Betty Walsh had seen it herself. When human ships tried to patrol alongside alien vessels, the aliens would show off. They would fly circles around the human ships, demonstrating how much faster and more agile their vessels were. The alien captains would send messages to the human crews. Try to keep up, they would say. We know it's hard for you, but do your best. Betty had to watch her fellow humans struggle to match the aliens' performance. The human ships were slow and clumsy, compared to the sleek alien vessels. The human weapons were like toys compared to the aliens' advanced energy beams. It was humiliating, but in the secret facility under the Rocky Mountains, something different was happening. While Dr. Turner was trying to copy alien technology, another team was working on something else entirely. Engineer Sam Rodriguez led a small group of humans who had a different idea. Instead of trying to copy the aliens, they wanted to make human technology better. They called their project Wildcard, and they worked on it in complete secrecy. Sam's team wasn't trying to understand alien science. They were trying to push human science to its limits. They took everything humans knew about engines, weapons, and space travel, and they tried to make it better. The aliens think we're stupid, Sam told his team. Maybe we are, but we're also stubborn, and sometimes being stubborn is better than being smart. Sam's team worked day and night on their project. They built engines that were bigger and more powerful than anything humans had ever made. They created weapons that used pure human engineering instead of alien technology. They designed a ship that was built entirely from human materials and human knowledge. The aliens didn't know about Project Wildcard. They thought all humans were like Dr. Turner, desperately trying to copy alien technology and failing. They didn't know that some humans had given up on copying and started creating instead. As Jake Morrison looked at the latest rejection message, he didn't know that change was coming. He didn't know that deep under the Colorado mountains, a team of humans was building something that would surprise the entire galaxy. The aliens thought they knew everything about humans. They thought Earth's people were primitive and would never amount to anything. They were about to learn that they were very, very wrong. The U.S. Maverick looked different from every other human ship that had ever been built. It was bigger than most human vessels, but not as sleek as the alien ships. Its hull was covered with strange bumps and ridges that served purposes the aliens couldn't guess. Most importantly, it was built entirely from human technology that no alien had ever seen before. Captain Rick Hayes stood on the bridge of the Maverick, watching his crew prepare for the demonstration. He was a veteran pilot who had flown human ships for 20 years. He had seen the aliens laugh at human technology countless times. Today, he hoped to change that. Ambassador Helen Price had worked for months to arrange this demonstration. Most of the alien representatives had refused to come. They said they had seen enough human ships to know they weren't worth their time. Only one alien had agreed to attend, and that was just because he was curious about human stubbornness. HFY was a young attach from the hegemony, one of the smaller alien races. He had never seen a human ship demonstration before. His superiors had sent him because they thought it would be funny to watch the humans embarrass themselves again. "Are you ready, Captain?" asked Dr. Nina Brooks from her position at the science station. She had left Dr. Turner's team to work on the Maverick project. Unlike the other scientists who were trying to copy alien technology, Nina had helped design completely new human systems. "Ready as we'll ever be," Rick replied. He pressed a button on his chair. "All stations, prepare for engine startup." The Maverick's engines came to life with a deep rumble that shook the entire ship. This wasn't the quiet hum of alien technology. This was raw human power, loud and aggressive. The aliens had always criticized human engines for being too noisy and crude. But noise meant power, and power was what the Maverick had been built for. From his observation ship, HFY watched the human vessel with mild interest. It looked primitive compared to the graceful alien ships he was used to. The hull was thick and angular, nothing like the smooth curves of proper galactic design. The engines glowed with orange fire instead of the clean blue light of alien drives. "Begin acceleration test," Rick announced to his crew. The Maverick shot forward like a bullet fired from a gun. The acceleration was so sudden and violent that it would have crushed any alien crew. But the humans had been built tough and their ship had been designed to handle forces that would tear apart more delicate vessels. Kethvar's eyes widened as he watched the human ship accelerate. According to his instruments, the Maverick was reaching speeds that should have been impossible for human technology. His own ship, built with advanced alien science, was struggling to keep up. How are they doing that? He whispered to himself. On the Maverick's bridge, Dr. Brooks monitored the ship's systems with satisfaction. The hybrid drive system was working perfectly. It combined 3 different types of human engines: fusion ramjets for raw speed, antimatter containment fields for sustained power, and a gravity manipulation system that Sam Rodriguez's team had. Invented from scratch, the aliens had never tried to combine so many different technologies in one ship. They preferred elegant, simple solutions. But humans had learned to make complex things work together, and that complexity was giving them an advantage. Beginning maneuverability test. Rick announced. The Maverick began to twist and turn through space in ways that seemed to defy physics. The ship could change direction instantly, stop on a dime, and accelerate in any direction without warning. The movements were sharp and aggressive, nothing like the smooth, predictable patterns of alien vessels. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kent, the ship's chief engineer, smiled as she watched the stress readings on her screens. The Maverick's hull was made from a new type of smart metal that could adapt to different forces in real time. When the ship turned left, the metal on the left side became stronger. When it accelerated forward, the front of the ship reinforced itself automatically. This was something no alien race had ever attempted. They built their ships to be strong in all directions all the time. But humans had learned to make their ships strong only where and when they needed to be strong. It was more efficient and allowed for maneuvers that would destroy other vessels. Kethvar was now staring at his instruments in disbelief. The human ship was performing maneuvers that his own vessel couldn't match. The acceleration rates were impossible. The turning speeds were beyond what any ship should be able to handle. Yet the human vessel seemed to be handling these forces easily. Run weapons test, Rick ordered. The Maverick's weapon systems came online with a series of mechanical clicks and whirs. These weren't the quiet energy weapons that aliens preferred. These were kinetic railguns, magnetic accelerators that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. They were loud, crude, and absolutely devastating. The ship fired a series of tests. Rounds at target drones. Each shot was like a thunder crack in space. The projectiles tore through the targets with ease, leaving nothing but scattered debris. The weapons were primitive by alien standards, but they were also incredibly effective. From his observation post, Kethvar shook his head in confusion. The human weapons were nothing like the elegant plasma beams and energy pulses that civilized races used. They were mechanical, brutal, and seemed to rely on pure force rather than sophisticated technology. But they worked. The target drones, built to withstand standard alien weapons, were being destroyed with single shots. The human projectiles were moving so fast and hitting so hard that even advanced alien armor couldn't stop them. Final test, Rick announced. Damage simulation. The Maverick's crew activated a series of mock battle damage scenarios. Parts of the ship were deliberately shut down to simulate battle damage. Whole sections of the hull were sealed off. Critical systems were taken offline. Any normal ship would have been crippled, but the Maverick kept fighting. The ship's modular design meant that when one system failed, another could take its place. When the main engines were damaged, backup systems kicked in. When the primary weapons were destroyed, secondary weapons took over. The ship could lose half its systems and still remain combat effective. This was the most shocking thing of all for Kethvar. Alien ships were built to be perfect, but when they were damaged, they became useless. The human ship was built to be tough, and it could keep fighting even when it was broken. After the demonstration, Cathvar returned to his ship in a daze. He had come expecting to watch humans embarrass themselves. Instead, he had seen technology that he didn't understand and capabilities that seemed impossible. But when he filed his report, his superiors dismissed his concerns. They said the demonstration must have been a trick. They said human technology was too primitive to match alien capabilities. They said Cathvar was young and inexperienced, and he didn't understand what he had seen. Colonel Frank Miller, Earth's military attaché, had been watching the alien reactions during the demonstration. He had seen Cathvar's surprise and confusion. He had also seen how the other aliens dismissed the young attaché's concerns. Frank smiled to himself. The aliens were making a mistake. They were so confident in their own superiority that they couldn't see what was right in front of them. They thought they knew everything about human capabilities, but they were about to learn that they knew nothing at all. Back on the Maverick, Captain Hayes and his crew were pleased with the demonstration. They had shown the aliens what human engineering could accomplish, but they knew the real test was still coming. Soon, they would have to prove that their ship could do more than just perform tricks. They would have to prove that it could fight. Aliens thought the demonstration was just another example of human primitiveness. They were wrong. The Maverick wasn't primitive at all. It was something entirely new, something that combined human creativity with human determination to create a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens had underestimated humanity for the last time. Soon, they would learn what happened when you dismissed the ingenuity of a species that refused to give up. The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of the Imperial Naval Command. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain, the highest-ranking military officer in the Galactic Empire, stood before a massive holographic display that showed 3 star systems glowing red with danger. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his aide, trying to keep his voice steady. 17 Imperial cruisers, sir, plus countless smaller vessels. The automated dreadnoughts are destroying everything we send at them. Zeth Corvain closed his eyes. The Nexus crisis had begun just 1 week ago when an old artificial intelligence from the fallen synthetic collective had suddenly activated. The AI had taken control of 3 star systems and was using automated factories to build an army of robot warships. The Empire's finest vessels had been sent to stop the AI threat. Ships with the most advanced technology the galaxy had ever seen. Ships with plasma cannons that could melt through any armor. Ships with quantum cores that provided unlimited power. Ships with defensive systems that could stop any known weapon. But the AI was winning. "The robot ships adapt to our weapons," the aide explained. "Every time we fire plasma beams, they adjust their shields. Every time we use quantum torpedoes, they develop countermeasures. Our standard tactics aren't working." Zeth Corvain had commanded Imperial fleets for 40 years. He had fought against pirates, rebels, and alien monsters. He had never lost a battle. But now he was facing an enemy that learned from every attack and got stronger with each victory. "Sir," another officer interrupted, "we're receiving a communication from Earth. They're offering to help." The Grand Admiral laughed bitterly. "The humans? What could they possibly do that our advanced fleets cannot?" But as more reports came in of Imperial ships being destroyed, Zeth Corvain realized he was running out of options. The Empire's military doctrine was based on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. When that failed, they had no backup plan. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered reluctantly. "Tell them we'll accept any assistance they can provide." 3 days later, the U.S. Maverick arrived at the battle zone. Captain Rick Hayes looked at the tactical display showing the positions of dozens of Imperial ships. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and graceful, glowing with the soft light of their energy shields. "They're pretty," commented Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kent from the engineering station. But pretty doesn't win battles. The Maverick looked ugly next to the Imperial fleet. Its hull was scarred and dented from testing. Its weapons were crude mechanical devices instead of elegant energy beams. Its engines burned with harsh orange flames instead of clean blue light. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain examined the human ship through his flagship's sensors. He had hoped the humans would send their entire fleet, but they had only sent one vessel. It was smaller than most Imperial cruisers and looked like it had been built in a scrapyard. "This is what Earth sends too." "Help us?" he asked his tactical officer. "Apparently, sir. Their captain is requesting permission to join the battle formation." Zeth Corvain sighed. He had seen human ships before. They were slow, clumsy, and weak. But he was desperate enough to accept help from anyone. "Grant them permission," he ordered. "Position them in the rear where they can't get in our way." The first battle began exactly as the previous ones had. The Imperial fleet formed up in perfect formation, their ships moving in synchronized patterns that had been perfected over centuries of warfare. They fired coordinated salvos of plasma beams and quantum torpedoes at the advancing robot ships .Ed. First, the attack seemed to work. The robot ships took damage, and several were destroyed. But within minutes, their shields adapted to the Imperial weapons. The plasma beams became less effective. The quantum torpedoes were neutralized by particle. CRAMB, LERS. Then the robot ships began their counterattack. They fired energy weapons that pierced Imperial shields like they were made of paper. They launched swarms of small attack drones that overwhelmed the Imperial defense systems. One by one, the Imperial ships began to fall. Captain Hayes watched. A battle from the rear of the formation. He could see the Imperial ships being destroyed by an enemy that had learned to counter their every move. The aliens were fighting exactly the way they always fought, with predictable tactics and standardized weapons. "They're like a chess player who only knows one opening," he said to his crew. "The AI figured out their pattern, and now it's beating them every time." Dr. Nina Brooks studied the enemy ships through the Maverick sensors. The robot ships are designed to analyze and counter standard galactic technology. They've probably fought thousands of battles against ships just like these. But they've never fought anything like us, Sarah Kent added with a grin. Rick made his decision. "Take us out of formation. We're going in." The Maverick broke away from the Imperial fleet and charged straight at the robot ships. The move was so unexpected that both the Imperial and robot forces stopped firing for a moment, confused by what they were seeing. "What are the humans doing?" Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain demanded. "They're attacking, sir, alone." The first robot ship turned its weapons on the approaching human vessel. It fired the same energy beams that had destroyed Imperial cruisers. But the beams struck the Maverick's armor and were absorbed by the thick metal plating. The robot ships. Artificial intelligence immediately began analyzing the human vessel. It had never encountered technology like this before. The ship's hull was made of primitive materials, but they were arranged in patterns that deflected energy in unexpected ways. Before the AI could adapt, the Maverick fired back. Its kinetic railguns launched solid projectiles at incredible speed. The robot ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against physical attacks. The projectiles tore through the robot ship's hull like bullets through paper. Robot ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The entire battle stopped as both sides stared at what had just happened. A primitive human vessel had destroyed an advanced robot ship that had been winning against the Empire's finest technology. "How did they do that?" whispered an Imperial officer. The answer was simple. The robot AI had been programmed to counter every known type of galactic weapon. It could adapt to plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and energy pulses. But it had never encountered simple, kinetic weapons that relied on mass and velocity instead of exotic energy fields. The Maverick turned toward the next robot ship. This one tried to adapt by strengthening its shields, but the human projectiles punched through them easily. The robot ship fired back with multiple weapon types, but the Maverick's armor was too thick and its movements too unpredictable. Navigator Tony Jackson plotted an attack course that broke every rule of space combat. Instead of approaching from a safe distance, he flew the Maverick directly through the enemy formation. The ship twisted and turned in ways that confused the robot targeting systems. "They're not following any known tactical pattern," Dr. Brooks observed as she watched the enemy ships struggle to track the Maverick's movements. "The AI doesn't know how to respond to completely random tactics." The Maverick destroyed 3 more robot ships before the AI began to adapt. But every time it adjusted its defenses, the human ship changed its attack pattern. When the robots reinforced their shields, the Maverick switched to different weapons. When they tried to predict its movements, it flew in impossible directions. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain watched in amazement as the crude human vessel systematically destroyed robot ships that had been invincible against Imperial forces. The humans weren't using advanced technology or sophisticated tactics. They were using brute force and unpredictability. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human ship is requesting that we coordinate our attacks with theirs." For the first time in his career, the Grand Admiral found himself asking a human for advice. "What do they suggest?" Captain Hayes' voice came over the communication channel. "Your ships need to stop fighting like robots. The AI beats you because it knows what you're going to do next. Start doing things that don't make sense." It was the strangest military advice Zeth Corvain had ever received. But as he watched the Maverick destroy another robot ship with weapons that shouldn't have worked, he realized that maybe strange was exactly what they needed. The tide of battle was about to turn, but not in the way anyone had expected. The Empire's advanced technology had failed against an adaptive enemy. Only humanity's primitive but unpredictable approach was proving effective. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the best technology is the one that refuses to follow the rules. The news of the Maverick's success spread through the Imperial fleet like wildfire. Ships that had been retreating in defeat suddenly found new hope. Officers who had been preparing for the worst began to believe that victory might be possible. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with new eyes. The red symbols representing robot ships were no longer advancing unopposed. One small blue symbol, representing the human vessel, was cutting through enemy formations like a blade through silk. How many enemy ships has the human vessel destroyed? He asked his tactical officer. 11 confirmed kills, sir. And they're still fighting. Zeth Corvain had commanded fleets for decades, but he had never seen anything like this. The primitive human ship was accomplishing what his entire advanced fleet had failed to do. It was time to swallow his pride and learn from these strange aliens. "Open a channel to the human captain," he ordered. Captain Rick Hayes appeared on the communication screen, his face streaked with sweat and his uniform torn from the violence of combat. Behind him, the Maverick's bridge was filled with smoke and the sounds of battle. "Captain Hayes," the Grand Admiral said, "your tactics are proving effective against the enemy. We request your guidance in coordinating our attacks." Rick wiped the sweat from his forehead. "With respect, Admiral, your ships are fighting like they're following a textbook. The AI has read that textbook. You need to start thinking like humans instead of like computers." The idea was almost insulting to Zeth Corvain. The Imperial military had spent centuries perfecting their tactics. They had developed strategies that were mathematically perfect, formations that provided maximum firepower with minimum risk. But perfect tactics were predictable tactics, and predictable tactics were exactly what the AI was designed to counter. "What?" "Do you suggest?" the Admiral asked. "Stop flying in formation," Rick replied. "Stop firing your weapons at the same time. Stop doing everything the way you've always done it. Start doing things that don't make sense." It went against every principle of Imperial military doctrine. But as Zeth Corvain watched another of his ships explode under robot fire, he realized that maybe doctrine was exactly what was getting them killed. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet, "break formation. Attack independently. Use whatever tactics you think will work." The Imperial captains were confused by the order. They had been trained to follow precise battle plans. Now they were being told to ignore their training and improvise, but they were also desperate. Their elegant formations and coordinated attacks had failed. Maybe it was time to try something different. The first Imperial ship to break formation was the cruiser Stellar Wind. Its captain, a young officer named Vex Talon, had been watching the human tactics with interest. Instead of approaching the enemy head-on, he brought his ship in from an unexpected angle. The robot ship he was attacking had been programmed to expect Imperial vessels to approach from predictable directions. When the Stellar Wind attacked from below and to the side, the robot's targeting systems took precious seconds to adjust. Those seconds were enough for the Imperial plasma cannons to score direct hits. Chief Engineer Rachel Adams worked frantically aboard the Maverick, making rapid modifications to the ship's systems. This was something no alien engineer had ever attempted. While in the middle of battle, she was changing the ship's weapon configurations, sensor patterns, and even the way the engines worked. "Switching to pattern Delta 7, she announced to the crew. "All weapon systems are now configured for close-range combat." The Maverick's weapons suddenly changed from long-range railguns to short-range particle blasters. The robot ships that had been adapting to kinetic weapons were suddenly faced with a completely different type of attack. Dr. Nina Brooks monitored the enemy responses from her science station. "The AI is getting confused," she reported. "It keeps adjusting its defenses, but we keep changing our attack patterns faster than it can adapt." This was the key to human tactics, where the aliens relied on perfected systems that didn't change. Humans constantly modified their approach. The Maverick could switch between different weapon types, different maneuvering patterns, and different combat strategies in the middle of a battle. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker led the first boarding action of the war. When the Maverick disabled a robot ship, instead of destroying it, he took a team of human Marines to capture it. The aliens thought he was crazy. Nobody boarded enemy vessels in modern space combat, but the robot ship had been designed to fight other spaceships, not human soldiers walking through its corridors. The AI had no programs for dealing with armed humans inside its own hull. Steve's Marines carried simple projectile weapons and wore mechanical armor that looked primitive compared to alien equipment. But primitive equipment was exactly what they needed. The robot ship's defensive systems couldn't target weapons that didn't use energy signatures. The Marines fought their way through the ship's corridors, destroying critical systems with explosives and gunfire. Within an hour, they had captured the robot ship intact. It was the first major intelligence victory of the war. Back in the main battle, more Imperial ships were learning to fight like humans. The cruiser Void Dancer stopped using its elegant quantum torpedoes and switched to crude kinetic missiles. The destroyer Starpiercer abandoned its sophisticated formation flying and began making random attack runs. The changes were working. Robot ships that had been unstoppable against traditional Imperial tactics were now being destroyed by attacks they couldn't predict or counter. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain watched the battle turn in their favor and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: respect for a species he had previously dismissed as primitive. "Captain Hayes," he said over the communication channel, "your tactical innovations are saving the fleet. How did humans develop such effective combat strategies?" Rick's voice came back, strained but determined. We didn't develop them, Admiral. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We learned that the side that adapts faster usually wins. A concept was foreign to the aliens. They had developed their technology and tactics over millennia, refining them to mathematical perfection. They had forgotten that warfare was about more than perfect systems. It was about human creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to try things that might not work. The Battle of Kepler Station marked the turning point of the war. The robot fleet had been advancing toward the strategic space station, intending to capture it and use it as a base for further operations. But the combined human-alien force stopped them cold. The Maverick led the attack, its unpredictable movements and constantly changing weapons confusing the robot targeting systems. Behind it, Imperial ships fought with new tactics inspired by human innovation. They used crude weapons alongside sophisticated ones, flew in chaotic patterns instead of perfect formations, and attacked from directions that made no logical sense. The AI tried to adapt, but human creativity was faster than artificial intelligence. Every time the robots adjusted their defenses, the human-trained alien forces switched to different attack patterns. As the last robot ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the Imperial fleet found itself victorious for the first time since the crisis began. But the victory belonged as much to human ingenuity as to alien technology. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain looked at the tactical display, showing the debris field where the robot fleet had been. For the first time in his career, he was grateful to have humans fighting alongside him instead of against him. Captain Hayes, he said, the Empire owes you and your crew a debt of gratitude. Your ship and your tactics have saved us all. Rick's response was typically human, direct, honest, and without false modesty. We're not done yet, Admiral. This was just one battle. The AI still controls 3-star systems, and it's probably building more ships right now. The Admiral nodded. The war was far from over, but now they had something they hadn't had before, a way to fight back. The combination of human adaptability and alien technology, and alien technique than either approach alone. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most advanced civilizations needed to remember how to think like warriors instead of like scientists. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, the Nexus crisis was finally over. The rogue AI had been defeated, its automated factories destroyed, and its robot fleets scattered across the galaxy. But the real victory was not the end of the crisis. The real victory was the change it had brought to the entire galactic community. Fleet Admiral Rick Hayes stood in the brand-new Joint Human-Imperial Military Academy, watching the first class of mixed-species cadets learning human tactical doctrine. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. Young aliens sitting next to human instructors, learning how to think like warriors instead of like computers. Today we'll study the Battle of Proxima Ridge, Rick announced to his class. Can anyone tell me why the standard Imperial formation failed in this engagement? A young Zephyrian raised her hand. Because the enemy could predict our movements, sir. The Imperial ships were following standard attack patterns that had been used for centuries. Correct. And how did the human forces adapt to this problem? A Vortaki cadet answered this time. They stopped following patterns altogether, sir. They made random attacks that the enemy couldn't predict or counter. Rick nodded approvingly. These alien cadets were learning to think like humans, to value adaptability over perfection, creativity over doctrine. It was a revolutionary change. In galactic military thinking. In another part of the academy, Dr. Nina Brooks was teaching alien engineers how to build hybrid technology. Her classroom was filled with students from dozens of different species, all eager to learn human engineering principles. The key to human design, she explained, is not to make things perfect. It's to make things that can be changed quickly, when you need them to be different. She gestured to a display showing the Maverick's weapon systems. Our ship could switch between 6 different types of weapons during combat. An Imperial ship with the same firepower would need to return to port to change its weapon configuration. A crystalline student raised what might have been a hand. But Professor Brooks, doesn't this make the systems more complex and prone to failure? Yes, Nina replied with a smile. But it also makes them more flexible. A perfect system that can't adapt is useless when conditions change. A flawed system that can evolve is valuable in any situation. This was the lesson that had taken the galaxy by storm. For millennia, alien civilizations had pursued technological perfection. They had created ships that were flawless weapons, that were mathematically precise, and tactics that were theoretically perfect. But humans had shown them that perfection was a trap. Perfect systems couldn't change, couldn't adapt, couldn't evolve. In a universe where conditions were always changing, adaptability was more valuable than perfection. Admiral Lisa Carter, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Defense Council, smiled as she read the latest reports from across the galaxy. For the first time in decades, alien civilizations were requesting technology transfers from Earth instead of the other way around. The hegemony wanted to license human modular ship designs. The Crystalline Consortium was asking for help developing adaptive armor systems. Even the proud Zephyrian Empire had quietly requested assistance in making their weapons more flexible. It's amazing how quickly things have changed, said Commander Betty Walsh, who now served as Lisa's military advisor. A year ago, they wouldn't even look at our ship designs. Now they're copying everything we do. Lisa nodded as she looked out. The window of the space station that served as the new galactic military headquarters. Ships from dozens of species flew past, but many of them now showed human design influences. Bulky armor instead of sleek curves. Multiple weapon types instead of single specialized systems. Practical functionality instead of aesthetic perfection. They're not copying us, Lisa corrected. They're learning from us. There's a difference. The biggest changes were happening in the shipyards throughout the galaxy. The U.E.'s Defiant, once laughed at for its crude appearance, had become the template for a new generation of warships. Engineers from across the galaxy studied its hybrid systems, trying to understand how humans had made so many different technologies work together. Chief Engineer Sarah Kent led tours through the Defiant's engineering sections, explaining human design principles to alien visitors. The tours were always crowded with engineers who wanted to understand how human ships could be both powerful and adaptable. The secret, Sarah would tell them, is that we don't try to make everything perfect. We make everything good enough. And then we make it easy to change when we need something better. She would show them the Defiant's modular weapon notes, which could be reconfigured in hours instead of weeks. She would demonstrate the adaptive hull plating that could strengthen itself wherever it was needed most. She would explain the hybrid power systems that could switch between different energy sources depending on the situation. The aliens were fascinated by human redundancy. Where their ships had one perfect system for each function, human ships had multiple imperfect systems that could back each other up. When one system failed, another took its place. When conditions changed, the ship could adapt by using different combinations of its systems. Dr. Alex Turner, who had spent years failing to copy alien technology, now found himself in the strange position of teaching aliens how to copy human technology. His lab, once a place of frustration and failure, had become a center of innovation where human and alien scientists worked together. "We're not trying to make you think like humans," he would tell his alien colleagues. "We're trying to help you remember how to think like inventors instead of just users of existing technology." The transformation wasn't limited to military applications. Human engineering principles were being applied to civilian technology throughout the galaxy. Alien cities began incorporating human-style modular architecture that could be reconfigured as needed. Alien factories adopted human-style, flexible manufacturing that could switch between different products quickly. Even alien medicine was changing. Human doctors had always been generalists who could treat many different conditions. Alien medicine had specialized to the point where different doctors treated different organs. But the crisis had shown the value of flexibility, and alien medical schools began teaching human-style general practice. The Galactic Trade Council, which had rejected Earth's applications for decades, now competed for human partnership agreements. The same organization that had once called human technology primitive curiosities was now offering massive contracts for human engineering services. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding a joint human-alien exploration fleet, received requests from alien governments who wanted human advisors to help them solve problems that their own perfect systems couldn't handle. "It's ironic," he told his mixed crew during a briefing. "They spent so long perfecting their technology that they forgot how to fix things when they broke. Now they need us to teach them how to be imperfect again." The changes went deeper than just technology. The Nexus crisis had shown the galaxy that their rigid thinking was a weakness. Alien military academies began teaching human-style creative thinking alongside traditional tactical doctrine. Alien universities started offering courses in human problem-solving methods. Young aliens who had grown up thinking that their civilizations had achieved the pinnacle of development now realized that there was always room for improvement. They studied human history, fascinated by a species that had survived constant warfare and achieved technological progress through trial and error rather than theoretical perfection. The greatest symbol of the new galactic paradigm was the crew of the redesigned U.E.'s Defiant. Commander Betty Walsh now commanded a ship with a crew that was half human and half alien. Her bridge officers included Zephyrian engineers learning human mechanical principles and Vortaki navigators studying human tactical improvisation. At first, it was difficult, Betty admitted during an interview with the Galactic News Service. The aliens were used to following precise procedures, while humans are used to making things up as we go along. But we've learned that the combination of alien precision and human creativity is more powerful than either approach alone. The hybrid crew had proven itself during several crisis situations. When the ship's main computer failed, the alien officers used their technical expertise to diagnose the problem, while the human officers used their improvisational skills to create workarounds. When they encountered an unknown phenomenon that their sensors couldn't analyze, the human officers used intuition and guesswork to develop theories, while the alien officers used mathematical analysis to test those theories. Grand Admiral Zeth Corvain, now serving as the first alien officer in the Joint Human-Imperial Command structure, reflected on how much the galaxy had changed since the Nexus crisis. "We thought we had reached the end of military evolution," he said during a speech to the Galactic Defense Council. "We believed our technology was perfect, and our tactics were unbeatable. The humans showed us that evolution never ends. There is always room for improvement, always a new way to solve old problems." The final validation of the new paradigm came when the galaxy faced its next crisis. A natural disaster threatened to destroy an entire star system, and the rescue effort required coordination between dozens of different species using Hundra.